Good evening, Namaste. Welcome, dear friends, to today's webinar from Swamiji's book, Living Wisely, Living Well. The reading for today, November 27th, says, Always listen inwardly for the voice of wise counsel. If you keep yourself fully open, you may hear suggestions even in the wind. There is a fascinating story from Yoganandaji's life. When he was in the US, some person wrote him a letter saying, "Why are you teaching all these teachings about Christ? All this is fallacious. Christ never existed," and so on. So Master prayed that he may be led to this man. So after some time, when Master was visiting the Boston Library, he was directed to a person sitting on one of the tables, and he immediately knew that this was the man who had written him the letter. So he approached this person and asked him, "Why did you write such a letter to me?" Now the man was flabbergasted. He said, How did you come to know that it was I who wrote the letter?" So Master said, "The same power which allows me to know that you wrote me the letter is the same power that allows me to know that Jesus Christ existed." In our daily life, friends, we have so many problems and so many decisions to make every day that we sometimes get confused whether to go this way or that way, choose this decision or that decision. Sometimes we want to understand other people more. Sometimes we want to read between the lines. We want to understand the intent and feeling behind people's words. We also want to understand the mystery of our own life and universe. Well, if we go only by logical reasoning and analysis, we kind of get stuck like, a jumbled up earphone cord, and we all know how frustrating that can be. But let us think logically to find out that logic cannot give us the answer to all questions. For example, logic cannot explain the joy of my own being. It cannot explain why I love others and how it is possible to love everyone. Logic cannot explain the beauty of a sunrise or that of a rose. And it cannot explain the inspiration to write a poem, a song, or to create a symphony. It is because we see life in fragments that we feel that there is no general direction to it. But the truth is that there is a way to find out the right path in everything. And the way involves opening our hearts and becoming more receptive so that we can hear the inner voice of our own wisdom. So what is this inner voice? Well, it is known by many names, and I'm sure you're familiar with all those names like inner wisdom, spiritual guide, intuition, and so on. Well, let us remember that the inner voice may not necessarily be a voice. It may be an energy moving in any of the chakras. It may be a feeling. It may be a hunch, also called a gut feeling. It may be an image, an impression. So it could be any of these things, or a very clear thought even. So what is intuition? If you were to define intuition, we can define it as the innate ability in everyone to perceive the truth directly, not by logic, not by reasoning, not by analysis, but from a simple knowing from within. Let me just repeat the key words: innate ability in everyone to perceive the truth directly. It is innate in all of us, but it is in a latent state, not active or dynamic. But we can develop this ability consciously. All of us can. To understand more how intuition works, it is important to understand the states of consciousness that we have. And again, we are familiar with subconsciousness, the conscious state, and superconsciousness. The subconsciousness is a repository of all data that we acquire from the environment over one life, over many lives. It's a repository for habit patterns, of tendencies, of vrittis, and so on. The conscious mind is the mind with which we work usually. It's the rational thinking mind. It is important to remember the quality of the conscious mind. Now, the conscious mind has a divisive nature. That means it tends to divide everything into, let's say, this or that, you and me, up and down, right and wrong, light and darkness, because it is a function of duality. Now, superconsciousness is a state of high intense awareness in between the subconsciousness and the conscious state. And the quality of superconsciousness is that it is unitive. In superconsciousness, everything is seen as one. You and I, this and that, all is one. And that means every problem and its solution is also one. So the solution is a natural outcome of every problem. It is very important to remember this. And if we were to access this unitive state, the superconscious state, all the time, then we can use the technique of meditation. Now the question arises that if the superconsciousness is always present within us, then why can't we access it all the time? Well, the answer is simple. We are so used to having so many restless thoughts. The mind is not quiet. And it is said that only when the mind is quiet can the soul speak. We are conditioned to work only with our rational thoughts. So when we do get an insight from the superconscious state, we just put it aside. The second reason is that developing intuition or accessing the superconscious state is like training a new muscle. It is not going to happen overnight. But as you keep practicing, as you keep testing and trusting your intuition and acting upon it, you will find that it works all the time. The third reason is that sometimes we do get an insight, but we are so caught up in our own likes and dislikes that we do not like the answer that we receive. So we just reject it. It's always there, but we reject it. And another reason is we understand the answer, but we do not have the courage to work upon it. That may be because we are either ourselves not convinced of the answer, or sometimes we may have social inhibitions as to what others would say if you were to follow your own inner guidance, which appears to be quite different from the rational thinker sometimes. And the fifth most important reason is that we are not paying enough attention. The inner voice is constantly and always with us, speaking to us, but we are not aware. So we need to pay more attention. Well, Mahatma Gandhi said, everyone who wills can hear their inner voice. Again, everyone who wills can hear their inner voice. That means all of us. So let us discuss as to how we can tune into this inner voice, into intuition. Before we go into the technique, let us discuss what are the prerequisites of being able to develop intuition. And the first and foremost out of this is to lead an honest and clean life. That means practicing the yamas and the niyamas. All those people who do bad things in life do so only after killing their inner voice. Because whatever we may do, the inner voice of conscience is always there to warn us, to correct us. It is up to us that we hear it and follow it. Unless we lead a clean, wholesome life, we are not going to be able to hear the voice and follow it. Now, if you remember your niyamas, then one of the niyamas is svadhyay. So the second important prerequisite is introspection. Again, we come to paying attention. Be very aware and alert about the thoughts, the feelings, all that is crossing your mental sky and consciousness. Because unless you are aware, how will you pick and select as to what thought you are going to carry forward and what you are going to let pass by? So be intensely aware in every moment. The third prerequisite is pressing the pause button in life. Now imagine that you are traveling on the highway in a car and you're just enjoying the breeze, so your windows are rolled down and maybe your speed is like 100 miles per hour. So the wind is coming in, gushing, and you're enjoying, and your music is also on full blast. Now in midst of that, your companion sitting next to you says something to you. Now, it is a possibility that you don't even register that the other person has said something to you. Or even if you do register that something has been said, you may not understand what it is that the companion is saying. So to listen to the person who is sitting right next to you, you will first have to roll up your windows. You will have to pause the music in the vehicle, and then you will be able to clearly listen to your companion. Now friends, the inner voice is our closest companion. If we are always reckless, restless, and in the competitive race of life, we are not going to be able to hear it. We need to pause a little. We need to divide and prioritize between our necessities and the not so necessary things. Also, what we need to do is find some quiet time by our own self. We need to keep the gadgets away. We need some times of silence where we don't speak with anyone so that we can speak to ourselves. And we should find quiet time in nature and train ourselves to listen to what nature is trying to say to us. And the best way to find inner quiet is actually meditate, meditate, and meditate. And there's another prerequisite, my friends. Because for so long we do not listen to the inner voice, it kind of takes a backseat in our life. So it is a good idea to consciously invite your inner voice to speak up and then be intensely aware of what conversation your inner wisdom is having with you. Now let's come to the technique proper. Master said that intuition is a combination of feeling and reason. Now the bodily center for reason is the spiritual eye or the positive pole of the Agya chakra. This is also the center of will and the intellect and reasoning, of course. And the bodily center for feeling is the heart chakra or the Anahat chakra. So Master said that if you want to project any question to the infinite, then the center here at the spiritual eye is the sending station. He said we are all like radio sets and we can tune in our frequencies. So especially after meditation, whatever question you have, you may focus your gaze at the point between the eyebrows. Visualize that a beam of energy is going out of your spiritual eye, and then consciously put your question on that beam. Something like you can say, what shall I do? Or you may say, should I do this or should I do that? Focus, concentrate, and in a beam send that clear thought. It is very important for the thought to be clear and have very high energy. And the thought may be in the form of a visualization. So you may visualize clearly and then project that vision through your spiritual eye. And then pause. And then feel in your heart center. Also be aware of whatever is happening in your mental sky, in your consciousness, in your aura. Feel for any feeling, any energy movement, or any image, any impression, any thought, or maybe even a voice, you are sure to get an answer. If you are confused and you do not get a clear answer, then Master said you can try posing alternatives as to maybe if I follow this path, and God, I feel these are the options that are in front of me. What do you think about each? And then he said, as you project the alternatives, project one and then feel a yes or a no, and then project the other and again feel a yes and a no. But remember that the question or visualization should be very clear and of high energy. Now Swamiji said that there are subtle refinements to, let's say, the art of intuition. So there is an art besides the scientific technique. It's an art to know your intuition. And he said that to develop that, it is very important, firstly, that you become a high energy person yourself. That means if you're looking for a job and you don't apply anywhere, then of course you're not going to get a job. So be a high energy person yourself. And how do you do that? We have all these techniques. We have energization, we have affirmations, we have prayer, meditation, chanting. All of this raises our energy. And also the attitude of saying yes to life. If anything is coming our way, if an answer is coming our way, if we say, no, I don't want this, I don't like this way, then the energy flow is going to stop. So very important to be a high energy person yourself. Then second is, be solution oriented yourself. If you keep focusing on the problem, then even when the solution is sitting right next to it, you are not going to recognize it. And that's what Einstein said. He said, the same thought process that creates a problem is not going to create a solution. It's not going to give you a solution. So you have to think differently. So you have to be solution oriented. The third thing Swamiji said that, he said when you pose a question to the infinite, let it be in a positive manner. Something like, if you were to say, oh God, you don't think I can do this, nah? Then the answer of course is going to be, no, you can't. But if you say, God, I think this thing is coming towards me, I want to do it. Now please guide me towards the best way that I can accomplish this. Then the answer is going to be different. So always be positive when you pose a question. And importantly, pray believing, as Jesus said. That means believe that there is an answer to your problem and that it will come to you. Now let's think of a situation that although you are trying, but you are not receiving an answer. So what could be the problems that you're not receiving the answer? What are the obstacles? And the first of this is that you are too close to the problem. So sometimes, you know, when a mosquito or a fly is just crossing our eye at very close quarters, we think that something big is just passed by. And because we are not able to see the problem in the right perspective and proportion, we are unable to find the solution to it. So what we can do in such a case is that mentally we can put the problem on a shelf for some time and with our common sense do what we understand as the next logical step is. Also, if we are emotionally upset, if there are too many emotions, too many feelings in our heart chakra, then the receiving station is blocked. There is going to be a lot of static in the radio and you will be unable to receive any answers. So the general rule is, if you're feeling emotionally upset, please do not pose your questions at that time. Do it when you are very calm. And the third thing is, that you are wanting God to hurry up with His answers. You have no patience and you just want the answer right away. Now think of a situation where you're traveling on a road and after a particular point you need to take right. But before that right, there are so many other smaller lanes going towards the right. So if God were to give the guidance, go right, and you were to get in any of those lanes, you are going to get, lost in the maze. So God waits for the time where you're just near that appropriate right turn, and then He will give you the guidance to move right. So that means we need to have patience, firmly believing that the answer will come to us at the right time. Now, till the time we are waiting for an answer, we are not just going to sit idle. So we are going to do what common sense says. Besides that, we are going to continuously, repose our question towards the superconsciousness. And also in the meantime, we can speak to people whom we trust to have wiser judgment to discuss our problems. You're obviously not going to discuss your problems on anybody walking on the road. So find a friend whom you know and trust to have wiser judgment. And till the time you get a definitive answer, you may discuss your problem with them. Now, let's go to the point where we start to receive intuition, and we've kind of started to trust it a little. But how to really trust our intuition? How we may get lost between hallucination, our own imagination, our subconscious vision, or true superconscious vision. So how do we differentiate? So Swamiji was very clear on this. He said you actually need some experience before you can really trust your intuition, because the more ego-centered we are initially, then the more of subconscious visions and our own imagination actually superimposes on true visions. But as we move on the spiritual path, as we keep following our intuition, and we find that there are two kinds of feelings. When there's one kind of feeling and you follow it, it appears to be the right path. On the other hand, another type of feeling may happen, and with experience that when you follow that, then you are led to a dead end. So with experience, you know which feeling to trust. Also, Swamiji said there are three qualities to differentiate between a subconscious vision and a superconscious vision. And these three qualities are calmness, clarity, and inner joy. So he said that when you receive a guidance, if you feel restless or nervous, then know clearly that you are following your own desires and it is not an intuitive guidance. When intuitive guidance comes, you will feel a steady calmness at the center of your being. So that is the quality of a superconscious thought or a superconscious vision. The second, he said, is clarity. So if the image or impression is subconscious, then it will not be very clear, maybe a bit hazy, ambiguous, and the colors will not be bright. They may be muddy. But if the vision is superconscious, then it will be a lustrous vision, very clear vision, and the colors will be very bright. Also, an important thing about superconscious vision is that later in life, at any time, at will, you can recall your superconscious vision. The third thing we said is inner joy. So again, if there's a guidance and you're all excited about it and saying, yes, I've got this and now I've got to do this. So again, know that you are more or less following your own desires. So a joy that is more inwards and upwards is a sign of right, true guidance. So may you be guided by all these signs. Okay, so now let's move on to we've started receiving intuitive guidance and we are following it time and again. The important thing Swamiji says is that be humble and accept that you may make a mistake, and don't impose your intuitive guidance onto others. And the most important thing after you receive your intuitive guidance is to actually act on the guidance that you have received. If you act on the guidance that you receive, then a doorway to the superconsciousness is opened. And soon you will find, as you regularly practice and trust your intuition, that you are actually all the time functioning intuitively. That means you're connected to the superconscious state all the time. And of course, we know that meditation can help to open that door. So meditate, try to listen to your inner voice. Once you receive the guidance, act upon it. Sometimes you may not receive the guidance for a whole project. So even if you're receiving guidance for the first or second steps, it is a good idea to act upon it. Otherwise, if you do not act, then the flow of intuitive guidance is impeded, or it may again stop or take a backseat in your life. So please do act. And Swamiji said, don't worry about making mistakes. It's all right, even if you think that you have made a mistake, but you sincerely follow your intuitive guidance, you will find that the way that you were brought was eventually the best for you. Now, as we go with our intuitive guidance, we should not forget that we should not leave our common sense, common judgment behind. Yes, there are times when truth will override common sense. But suppose you're getting this feeling one day that, oh, I'm going to jump off the cliff tomorrow. So Swamiji says, wait, understand the law of gravity, obey the law of gravity, and wait until further notice. It is also a good practice to compare your intuition to what the scriptures say. So if you feel that the guidance you have received is in tune with what the scriptures say, then your heart will know that it is the right thing to do. Well, there's a cartoon or joke that Swamiji writes in his book, Intuition for Starters, and he says, so there was this man, and he looked up into the sky and he said, oh, is there anybody up there? And a voice rang from heaven, says, yes, my child, I am here. So this fellow again looks up and says, what do you think I should do with my life? And the voice gently says, I want you to live a simple and honest life. So the person thinks for a while, he ponders, and then he looks up and says, is anybody else up there? So this is how we behave sometimes. Friends, the inner voice is always within us. We said it is innate, it is latent. Let us meditate, become aware, and let us connect with the divine voice within. I hope this helps you. We shall end today's session with a prayer from Paramhansa Yogananda. Mentally follow this prayer. O Lord, with the soft touch of intuition, I will tune my soul radio and rid my mind of static restlessness, that I may hear thy voice of cosmic vibration, the music of atoms, and the melody of love vibrating in my superconsciousness. Thank you, dear friends. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.